Good afternoon and welcome to this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches Independent School District Board of Trustees. Let a record show that a quorum of board members is present and that notice of this meeting has been legally posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act. Board member Reverend Irvin is not able to attend the meeting today. I would like to remind everyone that all items on today's agenda are for discussion only. No action will be taken at this meeting. And please join us in turning your cell phones to the silent mode. The first item on today's agenda is public comment. We did not receive any requests to address the board as outlined in the meeting notice. That will take us to our agenda review of the consent agenda. Any comments, questions, or corrections to the board meeting minutes? Hearing none, we'll move to item 3B, Business Office Reports. Ms. Barbrick.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, board members, Dr. Trujillo. I wanted to begin by thanking all of you for the flowers you sent for my brother's funeral. They were very beautiful. I would like to begin on page 24 with the budget amendments. The first budget amendment is in relations to our ESSER funds that we received. We are doing some more, there are 3 different grants, so they're piecemeal. We are increasing indirect costs that we can move over to general fund, and that's $322,623, and then we're increasing different areas of the budget to spend those funds. Item B, we are increasing our health services budget to cover the cost of hiring an RN. That is replacing an LVN. We pay an RN more than we do an LVN. So, item number C, letter C, increase campus leadership budget to cover additional payroll cost at the middle school. Item D, pull funds from fund balance to carry over a donation that was received in prior year for the band truck wrap. That was not completed, so we are pulling it over and completing that this year. Letter E. Several years ago, in the 1920 school year, we had extra funds and we developed what we called a wish list for different departments. All the different departments have spent their money except for plant services. Because of the bond, they put those projects on hold. I don't want to forget them, so I'm bringing them forward. He probably will not spend that money even this year. He's waiting until bond funds finish, but I don't want to forget about them. So that is what item E is. Item F, transfer funds for student support services for contracted services. They've requested $7,000 from instruction to be transferred over to professional development. Any questions on the budget amendments?
I just had a question on the additional payroll costs at the middle school. Is that for one person or is that for several people?
It's for one person.
One person.
All right. We move on to donations under $2,500, which is on page 30. We have a cash donation of $50.28 for Nettie Marshall for supplies from Kroger. On page 31 begins our investment report. Interest earnings are still dismal. No crystal ball on when that will change. And if you have any other questions, I will be glad to answer them on any of the other reports.
Any additional questions or comments on the financial reports?
You said on the investments, we don't have a crystal ball, but, I mean, the worst scenario could be that it could go lower than higher? I mean, is that a possibility?
That's always a
Depending
possibility.
on the interest? Yeah.
Our economy is just struggling right now. The world economy is.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item 3C, purchases over $25,000. Item 1 is CDWG desktop computers. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch, Board of Trustees, Dr. Trujillo. These are specifically for some of our CTE courses. This particular request is for the purchase of 21 desktop computers for the architecture lab. We currently have about 47 students enrolled in those courses. Currently what we have is it's not able to run AutoCAD, which is the very specific program that the industry requires us to use. We've been using something called Chief Architect, and it currently freezes up or sometimes just bogs down, and we are going to use ESSER funds for this purchase in the amount of $40,157.46.
I'm excited about this jump to AutoCAD, kind of an industry, norm. Do we have staff on board currently that can teach AutoCAD, or is that going to require some additional hiring?
May I turn it over to Mr. Lusk, our CTE Director, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you, President
Mr.
Fitch.
Lusk.
Yes, so we have currently one teacher that is familiar with AutoCAD, and so we're doing a train the trainer initiative with him. And we also have some curriculum that we're using. It's called Geometrics. It's to prepare students for the AutoCAD and Autodesk exams. And we have those other teachers currently using those programs right now before we turn it over to teach the students. So there is a plan to get those teachers on board with AutoCAD.
Well, I don't know, it's, one of my concerns here is we can put the right tools in the classroom, but we've got to have the right teachers behind it too. And AutoCAD is not something that you learn over a course of a couple of months. It's a complicated program, so I hope that our teachers will be dedicated into learning that new platform.
Right. And that's where we're spending this year to onboard them in preparation for next year when we make that switch.
So you do have teachers that you're looking at that would be interested in doing that, right?
Yes,
Okay.
correct, yes.
What we have is currently, because we haven't been using AutoCAD, for instance, in architecture and some of the other areas, we have to evaluate the staffs that we do have and their ability to take the curve to make sure that we're not only there, but also in the marketing portion of it. Now, in the automotive, we have been using it. Or you said we're using a trainer models.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. We have
So-
one teacher, our robotics teacher is familiar, has used AutoCAD in the past at previous school districts he has taught at. So we're relying on him to kind of navigate us, get us in the right path. He's recommended some training opportunities in addition to just that certification program, the geometrics curriculum. So we're looking at those options.
So if you would, let the board know, when did that person come on board? It's not been a NAC employee?
Correct. So this is our robotics teacher. He started with Nacogdoches last year at the middle school level. We brought him up to the high school this year. So this is his first year at the high school. But he's been at several school districts in East Texas, and he's worked in private industry for about a decade before he entered education. So
President Finch and board, to your point, making sure that we bring the people that are in here. We know that this is an onboarding program we were going to be launching with, which is the robotics. Our director with CTE has done a tremendous job of identifying that's an area we're going and finding the key folks that can take us there. So we're also looking at, we have some teachers that have a passion for what they're teaching, and we want to do due diligence to get them up to speed, but we're also looking at the opportunity to make sure that we can make it very competitive for our kids so that they can go out into the university or to the world of work with the right exposure.
Yes.
Do we have a target date of when we might get those teachers trained?
No, because right now, it's just the trainer and trainer setting up the times that we have for the training to happen, also onboarding the system. We're asking for the purchases of some of the items now to put in the system. So I would be putting the cart before the horse if I gave you a date, because we've still got to get the devices, we've got to get the programs. The processors that we've been using are nowhere near the ability to even run CAD. So what we're doing is we're trying to get all the right tools, tools in place, put the staff in place, and then we move forward with the future plan. You will see, though, a presentation of this in our next board meeting. You'll kind of see the whole scope of the CTE and the direction that we're going. This will happen this next month.
December.
So.
Mr. Luss, Dr. Gorman, do you have any need for specialized printers that would go along with this that we could know about at this time?
Sure. Well, there's opportunities when we look at the programming. I know graphic design is one of those industries that we're looking at, and how do we re-envision what the graphic design program is, and so that does include some printers. We're just at the space now where we don't have the physical space to accommodate for some of those items. You mentioned printers. We do have 3 3D printers that were purchased within recent years, so they're fairly up to date. And so these desktop computers could also run some of those 3D modeling software programs as well to support those kids as they're working with those 3D printers.
Thank you.
Also, do we have AutoCAD? We'll have to purchase that, won't we? And is there a licensing, like a subscription yearly, that we'll have to invest in as well?
Well, you all are going to love this.
Oh,
it is
good.
free for education
Yay,
use.
that is good.
So we will pursue that licensing route.
Wonderful. Also, for our public that's listening in, I would just like to add that this is not AutoCAD, and being able to use AutoCAD and getting our students familiar with AutoCAD and training is not just narrowly limited to those who want to be architects. Because I know from personal family experience that landscape architects use this as well, and so who knows who else. It's a really great program, and we'll really get our students a head start.
Absolutely.
Implications for GIS systems,
Yes.
city planning
Yes.
systems.
Yes.
It's very widespread. Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
That'll take us to our next item, C2. It's another CDWG, laptop computers. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch. This is found on page 102 and 103 of your board book. This is also for our CTE program at the high school. This is specifically for 72 laptop computers for CTE classes that will require the use of industry-recognized software. So much like our last presentation, we want to make sure that we provide our students with the opportunities, and this software can't be loaded on Chromebooks. We talked about the 3D printing in the last item, and this would be a particular platform that we would use for those students for the 3D printing and modeling.
Okay, can you be more specific as to the other program?
Sure. May I ask Mr. Lust to return to the podium, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. So some of the software that we're looking at is for VEX Robotics. There's some robotics programming software that we would like to include on some of these laptops. There's also Hummingbird, that's a programming software. You'll hear next month that we are building a cybersecurity and information technology program this year. We recognize that's a high demand industry and we need to invest in that. So that Hummingbird software is a great avenue for us to pursue to teach programming. We also have some teachers that may need some Adobe licenses. So Principles of Audio, Video, and Graphic Design, that's a course that multiple teachers have, and so it would be beneficial to have a laptop that can hold those Adobe programs. They're pretty intense on computers. And then Cura is another 3D development, 3D design software. So programming-wise, you're looking at robotics, some engineering classes primarily for these laptops. And we have Chromebook carts, some old Chromebook carts that the campuses used to have, but now that we've moved to one-to-one, we've secured some Chromebook carts and we'll get these laptops inventoried, both from the federal grant level, since we're inventorying those federal grants purchases, and then we'll also keep a district department inventory of those laptops as well.
That was going to be one of my next questions. Are these laptops that are going to be going home with students, they're going to stay on campus?
Correct. They will stay on campus. So we'll have about 3 carts that will be available ideally for each of those 3 teachers, knowing well, though, that there may be instances where we need to pull 1 cart for an audio-video class, for instance, for a day.
President Finch, if I might add with what he's presenting, is the key is industry-based. It's not geared toward what the educator feels that they feel most comfortable with. Goes back to our previous point, is we've got identified the industry-based software, and then we've got to make sure that our staff is prepared to teach to that level of industry that you have. And you're going to see on the next agenda item, it continues through this whole process, that it goes everywhere from the peripherals that Dr. Groman asked about to the actual device that they're using. And we're being very cognizant to the fact that does it have to be a laptop? Does it have to be a desktop? What does the industry require the students to be able to do, the portability of the technology, or if they're stationary with a very high output system that's able to do some of the things that they have. So the key with what he's talking about, even though we get to the naming conventions, some of those programs may change in a year or two, but what we're doing is staying with what's in the industry, so as the kids graduate, they can speak the language. Just as an example, architecture, I go back to architectural, but prior to going with CAD, we were using
Chief Architect,
which is also free. However, you mentioned Chief Architect to our architect that's out there in the audience right now, he would probably laugh and say, well, you can use that to design your bedroom. But what we're doing is not designing a bedroom. We want the kids to come out and be prepared for the industry, so that if our architect out there in the audience right now wanted to hire somebody, we'd have the technical skills for our seniors that graduate and can go to work or go on to school and do some amazing things. So,
You mentioned the Adobe products with these laptops, but when you talk Adobe, you're typically taking AV, audio-visual, or graphic design. Is that more suitable for large screen desktops?
So that's always, we do have extra monitors that we can use that for. What I don't want to use these laptops for is for our introductory courses. That's where we have a lot of our freshman students who are just exploring to see if this is an area of interest. So we don't want to use it for that purpose. Now, there is another purchase of the next agenda item for those iMacs. That's where we're going to address specifically also for graphic design using those large iMac monitors. So we'll address it in that area. For the laptops, there will be instances where we need to use it for Adobe products, but majority of the case it's for the programming software, the 3D modeling software.
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right. Hearing no other questions on this item, we'll move to item C3, Apple Inc. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch. This is the third item, request for CTE, so I'm glad Mr. Lusk is staying close to us. So this is for 27-inch iMac desktop computers, specifically from Apple. So the particular class is the graphic design and AV production. They want to run Apple Final Cut Pro, which is only for the OS operating system. And so these are for 27 iMac desktop computers. And I apologize, they're 24-inch, my bad. We want 27, 24-inch iMac computers.
Dr. Groman, Mr. Lusk, are these the newest iMacs or the ones in colors? Or are we
Yes.
getting some of the older ones?
No,
These are the
we're
very
aiming
newest
for
ones.
the latest, yes.
Okay, great. These are supposed to be better.
Yes, the Retina display, yes,
Yes.
sir.
I see that we have a 3-year Apple Care for the school for those iMacs. After that 3 years, do we have to renew that, or do we get a discount if we renew it after the 3 years?
I do not have an answer for that specific
I'm
question.
just curious. I
right
know
now.
that it goes for 3 years, and after the 3 years, if we're going to need maintenance on them and stuff, will we have to redo this?
I may bring our technology director over. She could answer some of those technical questions.
Yes, I mean, if we want to, I mean, I have a Mac myself that I've used, and a lot of us do really with Apple. I mean, they really, kind of make really good products to where we haven't ever found a need yet, to carry on the warranty after 3 years, because they're just kind of amazing beast, so.
And your staff is capable of doing whatever you need to do to them?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
good, okay.
Yeah, and that JAMP software license on there is where we're going to be able to manage those programs, just like we do with the iPads, to pushing out apps and things like that and keeping them updated.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, we're going to get those in black and gold, right?
We'll work on that.
I don't think they make them in black and gold.
If so, let me know. I will buy one personally for myself. All right. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. Lusk.
Thank you, Mr. Russ.
Takes us to our next item, 3D, sale of delinquent tax property. Mrs. Barber.
Thank you. This is, I've brought these to you in the past, where we are asking to release a property from its delinquent tax status so that it can be sold and put back on the rolls so that we can start collecting taxes. This is an estate. I couldn't tell you whether it's children that abandoned, I don't know, but it is an estate.
And so if we sell it, we're benefiting by selling it because we're going to get...
We'll start collecting
we're
taxes on the
collecting
property.
taxes on that.
Yes.
I think that's very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Mr. Montoya, what's interesting is these property that we're talking about have been acquired for some time. They've just not been sitting on the tax roll. And so what we've got to do in order to make sure, and some of it is historical, we're looking at it, it may have changed hands with families throughout the past, but when it sits there, it's not generating anything. And in working in partnership with the city and with the school district, we're looking at what can we do to get these properties back out into the tax roll so that it could be a benefit not just to the school district, but also to the city of Nacogdoches.
Any questions? All right. We'll move on then to item 3E, first reading of Tasby Policy Update 118. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, members of the board, Dr. Trujillo. The Texas Association of School Boards Policy Update 118 includes revisions to the following policies located in your board book on page 116. Although legal policies are included in the policy manual updates from Tasby for your review, only local policies are to be considered for your approval. Appropriate department staff have reviewed the Tasby revisions and agreed that with the changes that Tasby is recommending. The majority of these changes are a result of the 87th legislative regular session, and most of the major changes result from House Bills 4545 and 1525. We'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding the policy updates.
Dr. Grumman, I have a question. In these new legal proceedings that have come about through the legislature, they now are saying that our counselors have to be just doing counseling duties for 80% of the time. Do we have adequate counselors that we can do that? And if we do, then who's going to be doing all the testing?
That is a wonderful question, Dr. Grumman. Thank you for asking it. Yes, the legislature has now mandated that school counselors counsel as a duty 80% of the time, and has authorized, with the passage of this policy, the board authorizes the superintendent to make changes to a job description for the counselor in the event that we need to make some adjustments so that we can meet that 80% rule. So we are looking, studying, and job division, at job revisions, job duties of counselors, and making determinations as to who are going to take on some of those testing duties.
This is so fresh, Dr. Groman, that I can't give you an answer of what that's going to look like. I mean, we were in attendance at Tasby together, and so districts are trying to navigate this. However, this is something the counselors should have been doing from the very beginning. They're more there for the social and emotional side of it. We've been very fortunate here in Nacogdoches that the initial reason, and I can't speculate, but the initial reason why we looked at increase in social workers is because we utilize our counselors in the administrative capacity. So it's a good thing for the state of Texas to look at the roles of counselors, but it also causes us to reevaluate the structures of schools to make sure that we have the right support for the administrative side of what counselors have been doing for years. And so none of the counselors that we have that are currently with the school district have to worry about anything. Their job is not in jeopardy. We're not doing anything there. What we're doing is just refining and making sure that we're in compliance with the state expectations, that 80% of their schedule is dealing with the students. But I will also tell you that we have to work on training some of our counselors, because some of our counselors have been used to and feel comfortable working on the academic side of it rather than the social emotional side. In other words, you have an academic counselor that's what they've been doing for years. They've been working on schedules, they've been looking at the testing facilitator, and they've been utilizing that. So for those individuals, as we move forward, we may have to transition if that's what if we have a position that comes up. So it's a little too early to dive into what the dynamics of that 80-20 rule will play out. But trust me, we've been having this conversation, and it's in good hands. Our counselors are in good hands in meeting the needs for what that may look like as we move forward.
One of the reasons I mentioned this, I'm concerned that we get all our bases covered, but I took the Tasby legal update class this last week, and I took some notes, and what I wrote down is that the board can override this 118. I think that when we get like a single school that and just one counselor there, we need to look at that and how many more people we would have to expand to give the test. So we need to look at our possibility of, quote, hardship to cover every school. And maybe some schools will have to override this with hardship.
Well,
we can look into it at least.
And I appreciate that. However, that recommendation will come from my office to the board.
Okay.
After we look at all the pieces and parts, and we evaluate that, we will make a recommendation of what that may be in the best interest for staffing and for meet the needs of the kids. And we are very aware of that hardship because you have small schools, and how does that navigate? But trust when I tell you, if and when we get to that point, that recommendation will come from our office to the board as we move forward, but with clarity as to why we're doing that, so that the community knows the expectations and what the implications would be financially.
Right.
If we did comply with this in the way it was written. But I'm going to tell you, that ink, what you're reading, that changed. And so that the interpretation of this that's going through is like 45-45. It's just changing the dynamics, and the reality is that pressure is putting on, and that's why you're seeing adjustments that are coming in and saying, oh, by the way, if this were to happen, you can do this. So that recommendation will come as we're looking at the full impact of what this ruling will be with regards to our counselors as we proceed.
Great, thank you so much.
Dr. Trujillo, I have a question. It says 80% of their time, their duties needs to be as counselor. Where does and you keep saying social and emotional, where does the guidance for scheduling and course, is that part of, or is that being looked at? Y'all are talking about testing, that we need to not limit them or overtax them with the testing. Is this going to take
It's any administrative responsibility.
Oh, okay. So when they're
He's using testing as an example.
students on their coursework and choices.
That's
and stuff.
administrative.
Okay. Oh, that is?
Yeah, it's all administrative unless you're getting into the guidance side of what you're working with.
Oh, my
And so there's where we're having to navigate this. When I don't want to put it in a box and say testing, it's administrative. When you're looking at scheduling, working with schedules and schedule changes and all the things that go through it, this is mammoth. But this is generations and generations of counselors. And there's where I was saying that we do have counselors that's where they feel very comfortable. They've lived in the academic side of it. As a matter of fact, in some instances, you would have an academic counselor, and then you'd hire a social-emotional counselor as well. The wonderful thing is our district has not run short because of the innovative factor that this board took years ago to go in here and say we need to provide social workers. And I applaud this board, and this community needs to know this, applaud this board for the forethought in looking at we weren't meeting the emotional needs of our kids, not because we couldn't, but it's because we're taxing the whole process. And when you're looking at it with 504 meetings and special ed meetings and all of the things that go in there, we're pulling folks off for administrative responsibilities. So to your point, Leobeth, is testing is just one segment, but you have other administrative segments that we're having to look at, and the leeway is coming in and figuring out what does that role look like. We can follow the rule for what it says if it's titled counselor, but what do we need to do in order to provide that support for the administration of schools?
Yeah, well, that's good to know, because, I personally feel like the testing part, it can be worked out because they have everybody on board with that. But counselors, they burn the midnight oil all the time trying to get just scheduling and then leveling classes and getting and working it all out. That is huge. And so if this is taking a lot of that off of them, then kudos, even if we have to hire some people or specialized people in that, yeah.
Well, I think that the fact that we have social workers on campuses now, and you have the counselors, I think they're working very close together. And I think you, as superintendent and your administrative team, you're gonna come up with a plan that's going to benefit the school district and help those counselors and utilize the social workers as much as possible, because they do have the skills and the qualifications to do counseling, and they have the qualifications to do testing and things like that. So I don't have a concern. I think you guys will do all right for us, and whatever we need to do in the future, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, thank you. When they made this up, President Finch, they weren't thinking about Nacogdoches. I promise you, they were not thinking of Nacogdoches, because when they said counselors 80%, they're looking at the social-emotional client of the schools with COVID. How are you going to meet the needs of these kids? Well, we had our social workers and we have our counselors, so they weren't thinking about Nacogdoches when they were coming up with this. So now we have to come up with a solution to play nice with this new rule. So.
Very true. Any additional questions or comments? All right. That will take us to item 3F, cast votes for candidates for the Nacogdoches County Central Appraisal District Board of Directors for January 2022 through December 2023 term of office. We, in I believe, last month's meeting, had made our nominations for our board members to represent us on the Appraisal District Board, and this will just be the administrative action of casting our ballots in favor of those candidates. Are there any questions on this item? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to item 3G, reschedule the January 2022 agenda review meeting. That date, the normal date falls on Martin Luther King holiday, I believe it is.
Yes.
Let me say, so we're looking at, let me get to it in board book. Dr. Trio, you might be faster for me. We're looking at moving that to
The
Friday.
Friday before.
Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Will that work for everybody?
We would move it to the Friday before
The break.
The break.
Yes.
Holly, was that in that list of dates that you sent out earlier?
I believe so.
I think it
Yeah,
was,
it
when I
was.
was putting my dates in. As long as it's that, I'm good, because it's all in it.
Yeah. I got to it. So it's, yeah, it'd be
We just
January,
did-
be Friday, January the 14th at noon. All right. That'll take us to the review of our action agenda items, and that will be 4A, consideration of bids for NHS ninth grade building HVAC. Mr. Martin.
President Finch, as Mr. Martin is coming up to the podium, in Board Book, you're going to notice that there's two different items that are there. One is for the HVAC system. We did get the bid later with regards to the, my mind just went blank, chillers.
Okay. Yeah.
Chillers. And so just to let you know, that information is there. We're not acting on that at all. You will see that on the board agenda for Thursday evening. We just did not want to just spring it on there as a conversation. Today, the conversation will be on the ninth grade HVAC system. The second item, which is the chiller, is not on the board agenda. So I would refrain from asking questions with regards to that section. We can get deeper into that on Thursday evening, just for the fact that we did not put that out there with the public with regards to the topic.
Thank you for
Yes,
that note. Appreciate that. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon again, President Fitch, board members, Dr. Trujillo. On page 1151 of your board book, you will see a letter from Mr. Army Curtis, architect, with a recommendation to accept a bid from our vendor here for the ninth grade building HVAC systems from Texas Air Systems for a total project cost of $2,495,611. The funds for this project, with the foresight of our administrative team, looking at the ESSER funds, we were able to pull ESSER funds to fund this project with just a little bit left over. We'll be happy to answer any questions about the scope or this project. We have Mr. Army Curtis as well as Mr. Ralph LaRue here to answer any technical questions the board may have.
Any questions?
I have a question. Ralph probably answered me. If there is a technical issue happen during the operation, are they able to come and assist us to work it out, or we have to do it at home? Am I making sense?
Not following you.
Okay, if there is say, technical issue happened, do we have to work it out ourselves, or they send representative to work it out?
Oh, no, they send representatives.
If you would, yeah, come to the podium. Thank you. Mr. Lurie.
I'm sorry, yes, they send representatives, and there's a guarantee on all this work, so they would certainly come and fix it.
Okay, even though if it is fixable by our own people, we still need to call them, come back and fix it, correct?
There can be some give and take if it's a situation that affects a classroom, and one of our staff members can easily step up and reconnect something that fell loose or came off. We can do that and not void the warranty.
Okay. My question arises because when I was in the physical education department, we bought a very fancy dryer, washer and dryer. And at one time the fuse blew, and inside people put a shorter fuse on it. In other words, less amp, and constantly goes back and forth, to the point that when we decided somebody come fix it, they said, we can't fix it because you already messed with it.
No. Yeah, we would work that out before we began to make any adjustments. But with most of our HVAC vendors, we have a very good working relationship. We do a lot of work with Texas Air. So there's a give and take. And, you know,
Very good.
if they don't have a service tech right handy, we can take care of that.
That was my 2 cents. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments on this one?
I'm just curious, will this be a set amount that we pay? There not going to be any changes because of cost of materials or whatever? It's not going to increase on us, or?
No, sir, this price is locked in.
Locked in, okay.
This price is locked in, and I'll remind the board that this project was part of priority maintenance from the
Right.
bond projects.
Right.
All right. Any additional questions on this item? All right. Hearing none, we will move to the next item, 4B, consideration of NISD 2021-2022 COVID-19 mitigation protocols. Superintendent Trujillo.
President Finch and Board, just to give you an update of where we are, we continue to monitor very closely our students and our staff, and work closely with our city officials, medical teams here in town, to make sure that we have the best mitigation steps in place for the safety of our students and our staff and our families. Just to give you an update, total COVID testing approximately to date that we've aware of is about 916. That's combined students and staff ages 12 and above. However, that number does not include the little ones. If they have a primary care physician, these are numbers that we can actually look at. We created a district testing site over at Margie Chumley, and to date, it's less than 30 folks, but those are very critical because at 6 o'clock in the morning, this testing site opens up, and we have any family member and staff that can come up there and actually utilize that as a testing site. We've had less than 30 folks, and that number can fluctuate. Don't know the numbers of how many were there this morning, as we had. We had, to date, to the community, the public, the board gets a regular update on a daily basis. We update our website as well. Mr. Weinberger, thank you so much for keeping that updated for us, and Mr. Tarvin for getting the data together. But the board gets it in their hands, and they're able to see that on a daily basis. And to date, where we're sitting at, and this is as of Friday, our staff is less than 1%. We're sitting at 0.29%. And our students are less than 1%. We're sitting at 0.03% of our students. But to the families that you are that 0.03, our hearts are with you, and we know that it's a large impact on your particular family, and don't take it lightly. And we don't celebrate it because one student, one staff is too many. We want everybody to be safe and practice the safety protocols when they gather together, especially as we go into the holiday season and we gather with our families and friends, that we want you to stay safe and keep your family safe as well. We also provided the vaccination clinics. This is in partnership with our fire chief and the university. We work very closely. Mr. Tarvin and the task force worked very closely with, for weeks on end until this decision was passed down to school districts with vaccinations and families with vaccinations opportunity for their 11-year-olds or younger to 5 years old. Reggae, last week we had 56 families or parents or kids that came in. However, that jumped pretty much because we had, if mom was getting vaccinated or sibling that's over 12 came with their little one, they wanted to get vaccinated and took advantage of it. So it got pretty close to 100 folks that got vaccinated, but that's a combination of our students and and their families that came in. Carpenter, we wound up with approximately 57 folks that came in and scheduled. Remember, these are all scheduled events that they have to come and sit with mom and dad. I want to make sure it's clear to the public. We are not mandating any vaccine. We are not in the business of encouraging. We're just providing the opportunity for our families to come in and be able to take the vaccine when we provide it. Tonight, for the families that are out there, TJR and BQJ will have staff there from the SFA and the fire department and nursing staff will be providing their vaccinations from the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. tonight. Once again, if any Reggae family or Carpenter family that didn't make any one of those events want to get vaccinated and they are currently enrolled in Nacogdoches ISD, they can come out to TJR or go to BQJ and we will not turn them away from getting their vaccine. Tomorrow, we will have Fredonia and Nettie. And they'll round it out from 4 to 6 p.m. For vaccines for our little ones. So you'll have that. McMichael and McMoses, we realize we have families that have little ones, so they may be taking their older child to these elementaries, but we also know that we have families that only have a middle school child. Or that middle school child is the youngest one and they're not 12 years old. So we're in the process of coordinating a vaccine for Mike Moses and McMichael, and those are coming at a later date when we look at those. Just another big thing to let our community know is November the 19th, we have the adult booster clinic that will be provided to our families at Nacogdoches High School. Please look at our website to get the information. Once again, this booster is only for the adults. I want to make sure that the community knows that Nacogdoches ISD is providing opportunities for the vaccines. We're providing opportunities for you to test and find out if you need that to occur. Remember, the testing site is open Monday through Friday from 6 o'clock, beginning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's something that we're providing for our families and our staff members. With that being said, President Finch kind of gives us a pretty good sight. All the mitigating steps and protocols that we've used, including items like these plexiglass that are sitting here to our right and to our left. If you're watching it on television and wondering why some board members are not wearing their masks, is because we do have a plexiglass that's separating us here. Thank you, Ralph, for setting this up for us. And so we continue to practice our protocols wherever we can, and we thank our families for working with us for these many months of trying to realign ourselves to the new direction of existing with COVID. So with that being said, that's the report I have.
Are there plans, I know you've done the initial made the children's vaccines available initially. Are there plans to do another opportunity through the elementary schools as well, or will this?
I think right now, Mr. Tarvin, you want to step up to the mic and share? He's working very closely with the chief, and so we're getting the first cycle around. Matter of fact, the community may have seen it. It was on the media. We didn't want to be first. We wanted to make sure that we were responsibly and prepared to put it out there. And so Are there conversations, Mr. Tarvin, to making a round?
There are some conversations in there. Right now, what we are doing is scheduling that first round. We do have the second round scheduled for each one of these first rounds as well. But we're looking at, what are the numbers looking like? Is there going to be a need for a second round? If there is, we will certainly provide one. We just want to make sure that if anybody wants one, we're going to try and make it as easy as possible for them to get it.
Wonderful.
And I would not even put it past to the fact that when we come back to take the second shot of the Pfizer, the ones that have taken it this first time, that they will not turn any family away if they're going to want their first vaccine. So with that, you wind up with a cycle that continues, because then you'll have another week where they come back. As people get comfortable and they want to take this opportunity to take the vaccine and the weeks play out, we will see folks that are jumping in there and getting the numbers. One student vaccinated is good.
Yes.
It's fulfilling the need for that family. Regardless of how we feel about it, every family has that choice, and we're providing them with those opportunities. So.
Wonderful. I could envision where families right now, because the number of cases locally is so low, may not feel the, the urgent need, whereas as we move into the winter months, they may come back and say, I really need to get this done.
Absolutely, and Dr. Trujillo and the task force and the partnership that we've made with Stephen F. Austin and the fire department, we're working so well together that if there is a need, we'll just come together, we'll figure it out, and we'll get it done.
Wonderful. And we appreciate all your work
Thank you.
leading this initiative.
It's truly a team effort, and I appreciate that.
President Finch, I may add one item. The testing site will be open on Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday. So if any family member that's out there or staff member wonders, or they get back and they're wondering if they are sick, or we encourage them, please come out to Margie Chumley. We're open at 6 o'clock, and it takes no longer than 15 minutes. You're out there, they'll test and be able to give you results pretty quickly to let you know. What we want to make sure is our families know that we're going to travel during this time. And we want to make sure that everyone feels safe and be able to come back, and we can start school and make a run for Christmas break.
Absolutely. Any additional questions, comments? All right. Hearing none, that will take us to the next item on our agenda, our executive session. The board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act and as allowed by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 12:52 p.m. The board is now reconvening into open session. It is 2:25 PM. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to the final item on our agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. We've got a motion by Mrs. Winslow. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Apt. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all, and we'll see you Thursday evening.